Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Behind the Music, streaming live from the West Midlands and also from Luton. Sorry, Clive, nearly forgot you there. But we're broadcasting live from the UK, and glad that you could join us today. Clive, do you want to say hello?
Yeah, hi everybody. Glad to be back. Thank you for joining us. We have a very interesting guest for you today, and we hope that everything we share, you can take something away. And we just pray and hope that the discussion and what comes out will help somebody, and people will be encouraged to get throughout the week. It's been a tough week for some of us, but God is still God.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed, Clive. And yeah, you're right. The guest we have with us today is a fantastic choir director, has worked extensively on live productions. Very much within the art world as well. Grew up in a sort of conservative congregation from the Seventh Day Adventist, but has also sang and conducted in choirs in most of the UK concert halls actually around the country, including London, Birmingham, Manchester, Cardiff, and Sheffield. And has also worked doing film scores as well. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our special guest today, Colin Anderson. Join us, Colin, if you can.
Here he is.
Hey.
Amen.
Evening. Oh, I do feel special. Thank you for that, Jeff.
You are special, Colin, and thank you for being with us. We're very honored to have you with us on this show, and we thank you.
Great to join you guys here, man. This is great.
Fantastic. So, Colin, we're gonna make a great start here. No doubt you've got a lot to say and to tell us about. I just want to we'll start off from like your humble beginnings. I mean, you mentioned that you came from kind of a conservative congregational background. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I'm the last of 6 kids that grew up together. And my mum and dad went to Seventh-day Adventist Church in South London, in Brixton, actually, big one in Brixton. And back in the 50s, 60s, there were very few black people within the congregation. And then as that grew, obviously the Windrush generation, as that grew, there was no organist or pianist within the congregation. And my mum always says, I'm going to make sure my children come and they play the piano and play in church. And as I say, I'm the last of 6 kids. And each of us, bar one of us, all did at least the first 2 grades in piano reading. And I was the last one coming up. So that's what I did. And the Adventist Church certainly back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, to even 2000, very conservative. So I grew up learning, doing all my grades, reading and writing, music. And it was in church. It was just natural for me to learn to play in church. So as long as I can remember, music has been in the house, piano has been in the house, singing, harmonizing, playing the piano. It's just been natural. Now, I tell this funny story, which is, as a kid, you're growing up 6, 7, 8, 9. You want to be with the other kids running around, ramping around. You can get away with it at church. And my mom was in the church choir. She was an alto. And so she would, especially on Friday nights, she said, come, Colin, teach me my part. So I'd have to bang up Mum's part. I'd have to learn and teach her part, read the music and teach her part. So that was my first introduction to listening to people and how they learn and how they get to grips with notation. And because Mum couldn't read, so teaching her, and that just grew into then helping the senior choir. But trust me, at the age of 8, 9, 10, playing for the senior choir was not fun. It was
Wow.
not fun. My friends are outside running around. I couldn't do that. I was upset. You know, I'm to bang out this. Why can't you tell this friend? It was like, oh, it was hard work, crunching notes all the time. But little did I know that it was a learning ground.
Yeah.
It was learning for me. I just grew up in church, learning to play all the hymns, read the hymns, play the hymns, you know, whatever's put in front of me. By God's grace, I could play them. And so it was very hymnody in our church congregation. So that's how it just grew for me, just natural. My brothers, my sisters, me, just did it. And I just continued doing it right through, you know, became a teenager. You get involved in the youth choir at church. And, you know, I play. And then they'd ask me to help out. And all of a sudden, one year you're the leader. You know, how do these things happen? They just happen. They just grow. They just grow. So out of a prayer, my mother's prayer that she wanted her children, at least one of them, to be able to play in church for church service. You know, I am a product of that, and I thank God. You know that my mum, my dad, they made sure that they spent the time, spent the money that they didn't have, spent the money to make. I went to private tuition and learned, and
Wow.
you
Real
know,
investment.
today all of that is as a result of their wish to just enhance the service at church.
I mean, for me, that is actually amazing, and it actually shows kind of the, and I'm sure this was going to come a couple of times in this interview, about a legacy, about sort of leaving something behind that sometimes is unintended, but yet has just so much benefit for people when you move on to something else. That legacy is left behind to actually enrich the lives, you know, of others. I'm going to ask you just to give us a tip here. I mean, as you can probably see, there's a piano back here. My daughter plays a little bit of piano. She reads and she does violin. We've never really pushed her, but she's up to grade 5 now, I think, piano and violin. And she's always been quite self-motivated. What I wanted to ask you, we have a son who's completely different, loves music, but hasn't got kind of the discipline to kind of practice. What encouragement, or what would you say to somebody who's probably in both of those camps? Somebody who's very motivated, want to do it, and then somebody else who isn't motivated, doesn't want to do it, although we don't push him that much. Just your experience, Colin. What would you leave as a word of advice?
There is, in my opinion, there's no magic one, because, as I say, most of our kids bar one, we did it to whatever degree, to whatever extent, but at some point, look, I remember distinctly, my mum, as I say, my mum couldn't read music. She could follow, you know, after many years. She couldn't read it. And, you know, it's my piano practice time at home, and I get my music and I play and I practice. And I finish. She says, go back. She's in the other room. So I heard you, go back and play. You got it wrong. Thinking, how do you know I got it wrong? Go back and get it wrong and spend longer. And I'm fuming. I've got tears in my eyes. I can't even see the notes no more. You know, I didn't want to do it. But she was teaching me practice, make perfect, take your time. It will take your delayed gratification. It might be hard now. But you will enjoy it later. And she never kind of said that to me, but I understand that now. I really truly understand all that she did. She didn't expect me. All Mum wanted was me to play the piano at church. That's it. She was pleased with that. You know, I have she's passed now, and I have this thing in my heart, this memory of just playing the organ, and she's there at the back of the church, and she's smiling. She's contented. She knows that her prayer was answered, and she indeed left a legacy. That's what for her. But God has multiplied that for me, taken me to places with
Yeah.
people. It's like, wow. All because my mum said, go back and practice it more.
Mm.
Wow.
It was kind of like that. So
Yeah.
your son, you have to find ways to motivate them. And sometimes, even when they don't want to do it, you have to say, I know you don't want to do it, but do it nevertheless. When you're old enough, you will understand.
Yeah.
Mm.
Listen,
In
thank you for
whatever
those.
way that works.
Thank you, Colin. Clive, I'm going to ask you to come in a little bit, but I just wanted to just move on from that, Colin. Now we know that you spent a lot of time doing sort of amateur theatre and got a big break, if you like, working with sort of the Agape Theatre Company, and also in the
Yeah.
Westminster Theatre as well. Did some stuff with Greenwich Theatre.
Mm.
Just tell us how you actually broke into that kind of environment, into that field. How did all this
I
come
tell you
about?
what happened. I tell you again, it was not intentional. My first cousin, Eleni, her fiance, her husband, was very much a writer. He loved writing scripts. Mark Gray, he's a director for
Okay.
Agape Theatre Company. One day, I went to see a play he did, and he did this play, and somebody did a character behind the stage, as if they were in the shower. But that person also did another part in front stage. So I said to him afterwards, why did you get somebody to play a double part? He said, I didn't have enough people. I didn't have enough cast. I said, well, you didn't ask me. And that is where it all started. He said,
Okay.
really? And he asked me, I'm the kind of guy, I will actually try anything. I will try anything. And if you ask
Mm.
me, I'll give it a go. I'll give it. I'm the kind of guy who, if I do, no, don't start me now. I will just sink into it. I will give it a right old go. And so ever since it was mid 80s, late 80s, I traveled up and down the country, traveled to Holland, doing various plays. And it was a Christian, Agape Theatre Company is a Christian
Okay.
theatre company,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I've done extensively. And so I always knew, because that by then I was well into music.
Mm.
You know, done my grades, was doing choirs, doing group. I loved groups, writing, arranging, and singing in groups. I was doing that, but the theatre was just another thing. I started in basically when I was around about 20. I was around about 20. So for the next 10, 15 years, I did a lot of theatre, and it taught me so much. It taught me stage presence,
Yeah.
the impact you have on others, how a storyline is really important, how to engage people,
Mm.
you know. And I haven't done much of that in the last 10, 15 years, 10 years or so. I haven't done much of that. I'm looking to actually get back into it. That's another story, you know. But all those things have come together and kind of makes me the kind of whole kind of guy
Mm.
that I
Mm.
am, in terms of, you know, the different skills and the abilities, and how I can do presenting, TV presenting, and not being, you know, people say, oh, you know, you were in front of 5,000 people at the Royal Albert Hall. How did you feel? I don't feel any different in front of that than I do in front of my local choir. It's
Sure.
all the same. It's because one thing for me, I learned at a young age not to put myself or others on the pedestal.
Mm.
You know, respect and love everyone.
Mm.
You know, but we're all the same, and so
Yeah.
just engaging, how to engage in,
Mm.
what to do with, how to deal with stage fright, and etc. Theatre was really amazing. It was great escape for me. It was actually what launched me into community choirs, which I'm sure we can get on to later. So it was purely theatre. The latter part, I did become musical director for different musicals that we did, but it was strictly about the acting. So I learned. Careful now. I was just about to say I've learned how to act. I don't mean it in a negative way. But,
Hollywood come knocking.
But no, this is what I say to my choir members. Actually, maintain your form and stay in character. So one of my you'll see me when I conduct. Depending on the style, but certainly gospel, we like a bit of flamboyancy, etc.
Yeah.
And you will see me do all these. And then at the end, I'll hold them. And just hold them there. And too often they want to just finish. I said, no. Hold, because the audience, they're still with you. They're still experiencing with you. So hold it. Let them feel it. Take your time. And then breathe. That's all part of maintaining, staying in character. But yeah, theatre life has been really great. Met some wonderful people. Other people I will name drop. For example, spent a little period of that time. Somebody called you should know Mark Delissa. He's a great vocal coach. He's a TV presenter as well. He's done the likes of so many people. We did a stint together in Agape Theatre Company. But yeah. I really love that time, and of late, because I will be moving into a new phase as of December. I'm thinking, do I want to do some more theatre, do some more acting?
I was just going to say, are we talking theatre?
Let's see. Let's see. I'm leaving the door open. One thing I've learned to do is leave doors open, push them. If they open, I'll go through them. If I push them and it ain't for me, then it ain't for me. It's fine. So yeah.
I just wanted to pick up on, because we were talking about your work and your role in community choirs, briefly backstage. But I just want to pick up on the Town Hall Gospel Choir that you also worked with. Tell us a little bit about that and how that came about, how your involvement came about.
Well, I have to go before Town Hall Gospel Choir, because, as I said to you, I grew up doing church choirs, church choir, local church choir. Then I joined South London Male Voice Praise, which often got together with North London Holloway Male Voice Praise, and so we sang all London Male Voice Praise. So here's a slight aside. My favorite choir, and I make no bones about it, is to run a male voice choir. I've not done it yet, but because it was my first venture outside of my local church. So I did that. Joined the London Adventist Chorale under the directorship of the founder, John Tolman, the late John Tolman. London Adventist Chorale were the cream of Adventist singers coming together and singing some really beautiful music, some lush harmonies. It was amazing, the experience. And, so many of our singers and our musicians have come out and through London Adventist Chorale. And two of our biggest names you will know is Paul Lee and Ken Burton, who is the director of London Adventist Chorale. So I did a lot of that, and then there was theatre. I spent a lot of time doing the theatre, and Mark Gray wanted to do a musical and applied for funding in the London Borough of Greenwich for a Millennium Project, a new Millennium Project, 2000. Applied and failed. Didn't get it. But what they said is, we're going to give that money to somebody, another theatre company. But what we'd like you to do is to do the music. It's a musical. Want you to run the chorus. So
Okay.
I ran the chorus for Millennium Project, Passports to the Promised Land, which happened at Greenwich Theatre in year 2000 and repeated again in 2001. And I was chorus master for that. That was my first foray into the community with music. Myself as in music, anything really. And really loved it. The cast loved it. The chorus loved it. They said, we want to keep this going. There ain't no money for it, but yeah, so teamed up with a Woolwich Simba project. There was a gentleman there, really great. He really supported us. His name was Kenny Price, and there was a project, a black project in Woolwich, and he worked with us. And he said, right, come over and do some workshops and see what you can do. And so we did that. We formed a choir. My first community choir was called Vox Simba. There's a thread there, VOX and Simba. It was Woolwich Simba project.
Okay.
Simba. And so because they the project had ended, but they wanted to continue singing, we carried on. And we did that for about 5 years, 6 years, singing all around the borough, and ventured wider than that, up into London, actually, into central London, etc. So that was my first foray into community choir. And when I did that, something said to me, the Holy Spirit said to me, this is your calling, Colin. And I made the conscious decision that I would serve my church. I will always serve my church, okay? But I will minister to the community. Now, we can flip the words around the other way. I will always minister in my church, but I will use my music to serve the community. Either way, it's got to be outward focused. Ever since then, I've said all my choirs that I run as a choir director will always be community choirs.
Colin, do you get support? Do you get support? Sorry to cut you, but have you, so throughout all of this, your career, have you, we can often think that we live in a utopian world when we're talking about gospel acts, gospel choirs, gospel ministries, and so forth. And so people can get blinded and think that because we are doing this for God, everything is a bed of roses. I wanted to ask a question. Did you always have from the get-go support from your leaders? I'm not asking you to serve any conflicts, because hey, listen, we live in a real world.
No,
right?
I can answer that.
We live in a real world,
No.
Sorry,
I can answer that openly. Because like I said to you, I did church projects, but once my focus was outward, I didn't need to involve the church. I didn't need to involve. I knew they would support it, because a lot of the music that we did, even if it is Bill Withers' Lean on Me, even if it is Bob Marley, One Love, back then, remember, I came from a conservative congregation. Okay, they would frown on that kind of stuff. So, and I knew that.
This is why I asked the question.
Okay, that's cool. I'm not coming to you with it. So I go outward, and so it was getting funding, grants and funding from different arts bodies, etc. And Vox Simba got funded up until about 2004-5, maybe 2006 actually. We had a little funding, and that was great, and that worked. But so that project, I must say, my wife Celia, who's a great singer, she runs choirs too. She supported me in that project. I must say, if you want to talk about support, Kenny Price ran the project, and my wife Celia was there with me all along, and so we went through a transition. And in 2007, 2006, 2007, in Birmingham, Black Voices, the music director, Carol Pemberton, but Black Voices are the preeminent Black arts group in the West Midlands. And they would produce a lot of the shows that Symphony Hall and Town Hall wanted to do. And I say shows, they insisted that they put on concerts in those two major halls for Black people and for Black churches, and make it accessible. And they often were the ones that got all the singers and all the choirs and all the voices together across the Midlands. And the town hall was closed for about 11 years, reopened in 2007.
That's right. Yeah.
2000. They had a big do. I think it was a whole week or plus of amazing shows, etc. And one of those on the big night was to reproduce about 12 songs or so from the famous Handel's Messiah, A Soulful Celebration. The big name, the marquee name was Quincy Jones, but so many marquee gospel artists on that, and we did that. I say we did it. Black Voices were asked to produce a whole choir from the region, from the Midlands region. They did about 90 voice choir.
This is a community,
but it was from the gospel community, and I think that's key. Because they wanted to make sure that the sound was authentic, and it was only the Pentecostal churches basically that had to be the core sound, and all the rest of us and others, would tap into that. Now, I say us because I'm not from London. I live, born and bred in South London, and still am dear. But because my wife, she's part of Black Voices, her family is from the Midlands, so there was that connection. And as part of that show, they needed bass voice singers who could read music, and so they asked me to supplement the choir. So I was able to be part of that project, and it delivered. It was subconducted by Ken Burton, but the late Steve Gray, what was then the Jamaica All Stars, the Reggae Philharmonic, Soweto Kinch, Cleveland Watkins. It was a major BBC big band. It was marvelous. It smashed it, stole the show to the point where they did it again the following year, repeated it, and it went out live broadcast on BBC Radio 3.
Wow.
And I was just in that. And that exciting happened. And they said, oh, this was really great. The choir were really great. Let's keep it going. Well, they said, well, how do we do this? Ken Burton was the conductor. He lives down on the South Coast. He wasn't able to do it. So basically, I put my CV in. And they interviewed me, and I became the first choir director for Town Hall. Then it received the name Town Hall Gospel Choir. So it formed in 2008. I've been blessed to be Town Hall Gospel Choir director. So it came out of, again, another project where it was just the enthusiasm of a project, and everyone said, oh, this is really great. Can we keep it going? Because that, and you don't get me, I can't stop, because that coincided with, because we rehearsed during 2007. That coincided with another project that my wife and we did together in 2007. We did a Black History Month project in Reading. The church over there said, we want to do a whole few weeks, introduce music to the community, introduce Black music to the community. Can you come? My wife and we went down, we did a series of workshops, and that really went well. They loved it. We did a concert in November as a result of that, and everybody said, "Oh, this is really great. We want to keep this going." And for that choir, because my wife, as I say, being in Celia is in Black Voices and they're based in the Midlands, she couldn't do that as well as other things she was doing. So I continued running Reading Community Gospel Choir with a couple of it was then Gemma and Esther Fleury Griffiths. I was choir director for Reading Community Gospel Choir at the same time, and all these things happen as a result of being involved and people just loving it and saying, we want to keep this going. And that hasn't stopped. Every choir that I've been choir director of, it's because people have loved what's happening. They really identify and want more of it. Can we keep this going? Hey, like I say, if somebody opens the door, if the Lord opens the door, I'll push and I'll walk through. I didn't know how is it I can live in South London and run a choir in Birmingham? I don't know how that happened. You know,
that's quite powerful what you're saying there. You know, the fact that people have got involved in the choir, and then you know it's coming to the point where it's ran its course, but they don't want to finish the race. They feel like they have some more energy left because they're now inspired. Talk us about how, you know, you've experienced how people have been, you know, inspired and you know how it, you know, the choirs help people with even like mental health, with their mental health issues and that, because we know it's a community coming together. And we know, you know, as the scripture says, iron sharpeneth iron. And we know what the power of love can do. And when people get around people that are like-minded and they're sharing that same thing and expressing themselves, you know, just talk us a little bit through, you know, that side of how you've seen people be emotionally and spiritually and mentally helped and uplifted through being involved with a community choir, or even any choir for that matter. You know, it's just so our viewers can hear, and we want to encourage the viewers to listen. And if there's a community choir near you, at the end of this show, we hope you'll be encouraged. If you need support in anything, you know, we're hoping you'll be inspired to get involved in your local community choir. Colin, go ahead, man.
Yes. So you see, I didn't know. I did these things out of a passion. As I say, if I get into something, I get into something. And because I grew up in music, it was just an expression. It's just what I knew, how my brain became wired, how my enjoyment, and that's what I lived around. But then I went on to study, and I've done postgrad music. I didn't study at undergraduate level, but I have done postgraduate certificate and diploma in choir direction and music conduct and choir direction. And you learn these things that what I didn't know then was that this thing about choir and why people love it, the coming together. The singing, a choir is always more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, it exists in the animal kingdom, and it certainly exists amongst us within our society. You know, singing produces endorphins, oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, or it produces this. And when we come together and we sing, these are things that lift our spirit, that people enjoy, and that it takes them out of very often a sad experience that they're going through, and gives them relief and release. You know, and so you know, a couple of things for me is really important that the workshops and the sessions we do, the rehearsals, it's become apparent to me that just one, be authentic. I need to be authentic. I need to enjoy what I'm doing, and I need to enjoy people. I love people. I love people. I also enjoy what I'm doing. And one of the decisions I did make, that my community choirs would be gospel focused. That's why calling it Town Hall Gospel Choir was a good fit for me.
Sure.
Vox Simba wasn't specifically a gospel outfit, but I use a gospel style and genres around it. Okay,
Yeah.
nothing that I do will ever conflict with my core fundamental belief as a Christian, as a man of God, as a man of faith. I'm not going to do anything that cuts across that. So, and we know the faith that we have. Sometimes we don't have to pull out the Bible
Absolutely.
to
Yeah.
somebody. Here's a tough one. Sometimes we don't have to stand in front of them and pray with or for them.
True.
But when
That's
they
true.
see the interaction, when we minister one-to-one with them, we can go home and pray.
Yeah.
You know, with them, for them. But they just see this gospel as something completely different to the stuffy, the stuck up, the two-faced, the hypocritical, and all those things that can be associated with church, you know, and the gospel, and oh, it's only black people that can do it, and all these kind of things that are bolted onto, and it's breaking those down, breaking them and making it accessible to any and everyone. So, you know, we've had examples of people who come into the choir who are not just non-Christian, they are of another faith, whether that's Buddhist. We've had Islamic. We've had a number of people who of no faith at all, and we've had people who call themselves atheist. We have people of different sexualities, you know, right across the board. And my belief is, you come, you're welcome. Come and sing and join in and feel and just enjoy singing. You know what? Just enjoy singing. But I know that there's more. So the messages in the songs that we sing have to be speaking to the spirit, speaking to people's lives and bringing about life. And of course, we know that life is Jesus Christ. You know, and so that's what they share. That's how they get and begin to find out. So we've had people who have been diagnosed with various levels of mental illness, of depression, etc. And being part of the choir, you know, they've been, oh dear Lord of mercy, man. Ooh, my sister, a young lady in one of my choirs, early choirs, you know, she was being abused at home by her husband, you know, but choir meant something to her. I praise the Lord every time I see her now. She's a big singing, big choir now, because she was able to take that time and someone somewhere gave her that space, you know. And it's just so I know, so that's it, almost in an informal way. But you know, even now, over the last few months at Town Hall Gospel Choir, the management committee, we're talking about, right, we want to develop a program that helps the mental health. That we're going to go out there into the West Midlands to help with, clearly through the pandemic, illness, mental well-being is a big issue. Hey, we experienced trouble in our choir, you know. So hey, and so that's what we're developing. The choir for Be Positive, that absolutely is a support choir. It started out, you know, and one of its arms is to support people who struggle with the genetic disorder, sickle cell. So I'm very much aware how it's life. It literally is life. It supports mental health. It supports their physical well-being, their emotional well-being. So that is really at the core, because that goes back to my core fundamental belief that serving the community. I will serve, I will minister to the community, and this is how it, it impacts others.
It's a very powerful tool. I mean, I personally, I've always been drawn to choirs. And if I had the opportunity ever to play for choir, I would always take it. There's just something about, I think it's what you explained earlier about the things that get released when you're participating in a choir. But I think from what you're saying, it's shining a light on how powerful a tool a community choir can be in any community. Not just in bringing people together, but in the people that participate in their own well-being. And then imagine now, when those individuals go away, what they share with others that are not part of that choir. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in the community itself, because we have as you know, we have other members of our Christian community, like John Fisher, for instance, I Think We Think, and the IDMC choir, and the programs they run, and hats off to all these choir leaders and directors that will go out into your community and set up these things, these programs and these projects. And even as you said earlier, your wife, Black Voices, the work that they also do, you equally said your wife is equally just as busy. And this is real devotion and commitment, because like you said, London, that's no easy trek, and especially South London. That ain't no easy trek just to get out of South London alone to the M1. You know what I mean? And then to negotiate the M1 to then join the M6 without the lugga and what's going on there with the roadworks lifted. I mean, that's some commitment. And you're talking sometimes pre-pandemic, 3 times a week. And Colin, how many years? This is not just like a couple of years, And I can only say, you are a real encouragement, because you've put the work in and you continue to put the work in. But the thing is that what I'm seeing is the barriers that you tear down, the stereotypes, and those unattractive messages and things that are attached to gospel. How the community choir and the work you do just dispels all of that and breaks that down. It's just fantastic. It really is just fantastic. You mentioned be positive already, but I actually wanted you to go into that in a little bit more detail, because you're talking about making Black people in our Black community aware of sickle cell and so forth, and the need to give blood. I just want to drop this in. I grew up, the very first church I grew up in was Firstborn Church of Living God, which was then Bishop John Francis' father, Bishop T. Francis.
Okay.
So I grew up with Bishop John and from Firstborn and so forth. And the late Pastor Campbell from Luton was my local pastor here in Luton. And Bishop John had the church in Islington. Bishop Francis had the church in Islington. But the thing is that we had a drummer there, the late Solomon Mead, the very, very late Solomon Mead. And Solomon, it was just 4 musicians. It was just Bishop John on keys, Solomon Mead on drums, Glenn Campbell on bass, and I was then on guitar. And we were these little boys back then, But I would see Solomon sometimes curl up in a corner and the church would be praying. I didn't really understand what was going on. It was years later I realized that he had sickle cell.
Mhm.
And there were times when we at convention, because we were the only, listen, we were the four main musicians within Firstborn. So you had the two guys from London, Bishop John now and Solomon, and then Glenn Campbell and myself from Luton. And so we would stay over in London and we would stay at Solomon's house. And sometimes when he would tell us what if a crisis, as he would call it, what this is like in the early 80s, you know, I'm a young boy and I'm learning about my friend who has this, you know, and he eventually, you know, took him home, you know, but witnessing the when he went through some of those crises, it was painful. It really was, because you wanted to reach, you just sat, you didn't know what to do, you know. And so yeah, I'm really happy that, you know, the awareness is still going on, and it needs to, it needs to, because it does affect our community in a very, very big way. And I don't know how far, how advanced the help is medically now, as opposed to what it was back then when Solomon, you know, passed away from that. But, you know, talk us through it, and what needs to be done, and how we can all get involved in help, and the message that Be Positive is spreading.
So, as you say, the Black community is disproportionately affected by the specific genetic disorder called sickle cell anemia, where when it gets under stress and pressure, the normally round or discoid red blood cells, they actually disfigure and become a sickle, a crescent shape. And the problem with that is that it doesn't flow through the capillaries, the arteries. It doesn't flow through the organs properly. So it gets stuck in bones, in the eye, in all the organs. You can get major organ failure. It is totally debilitating. And it's a genetic disorder where, you know, 90% of it is in people of African and Caribbean descent. Okay. So every year 300 babies are born with sickle cell still.
Wow.
Genetic disorder. You know, we've got some 15,000 in the UK. It's literally the fastest growing genetic disorder across the globe. Here in the UK and in Europe, it's the fastest growing genetic disorder, disproportionately affecting Black people. So that's the problem. And when it hits them, you know, they start experiencing it as young as the age of 1 and 2. When it starts hitting them, a lot of them totally excruciating pain. Somebody said to me, one of the guys said to me, "Oh, it's like, you know, people are afraid of the needle. You say, you know, why don't you give blood? Why? I'm afraid of needles. You know, I can't do it because I'm afraid of needles." He said to me, "Colin, I understand that people are afraid of that pinprick, that needle, but just imagine, I have 100 of those stabbing and slashing pains every minute." And way to help me, they give them very strong opiate drugs, okay, very strong, that can only be prescribed by the medical field, okay, and it affects them so much. But for those who get into crisis to that extent, a blood transfusion, replacing their blood with blood that is not sickle, that is healthy blood, is the way forward. Now, as of 2016, the way the National Institute of Health and Clinical Excellence, NICE, they showed that the best clinical therapeutic outcomes was if they got what is called, instead of just giving them a transfusion of 1, 2, 3, 4 bags of blood is to actually do what we call an exchange. So that is, they literally in one arm get the blood from a donor, and in the other arm they're taking out their blood, so reducing the amount of sickle cell that's in their circulation. But that takes up a lot more blood. So instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4 units, now they're having 8, 10, 12, 14 units of blood. So to get blood, we need to make sure that it's compatible, because they're not just being transfused once. They are transfused regularly every 4, 5, 6 weeks, sometimes as frequent as every 2 weeks. Because they're being repeatedly transfused, let me say it this way, the blood that they receive has to be as closely matched to their own blood types, their own blood group. And that's where we say ethnically matched blood matters, ethnicity matters, because we are more likely to have the same blood groups than those of our Caucasian counterparts. And so there's a particular blood group called RO, that 45 to 55% of us have that. So whereas only 2% in the Caucasian population have that. So we need more black people to become donors and become regular donors, because it literally saves lives. And by giving one donation, you can save 3 lives. You will hear that said. It's very real. It's very real. And in I say all that, and to encourage us to become blood donors. But I know that there's a lot of relationship between us and the hospitals and the medical field, and there's the trust and all those things that are part of our experience. So us as a people, we are sometimes very reticent, skeptical, and it's for and in 2017 in the blood service thought, right, we want to attract more black people to become blood donors. What do we do? And they said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to set up a choir with people who have sickle cell anemia, their families and supporters, and people who give blood, black people, for them to sing, to encourage other black people to become blood donors. And they teamed up with Kanye King and Mobos. So the choir was to sing at Mobo Awards 2017. And they said, right, we're going to do this. Who can we get to be choir director? And
that's where you came in.
Somebody says, I know a man who does and who can, because I actually have worked for them for my whole working life, but in a completely different capacity as a biomedical scientist and other things. So I came on board in 2017 and worked with them. And it was choir as far north as Preston, Manchester. We have a set. I have a core set of singers, a small choir in Manchester, and they're run and directed by a vocal coach called Zena Taylor. Absolutely amazing lady. And in the West Midlands, got a great core of singers there, run by another amazing vocal coach and director, and that's Conrad Gale. Got really great vocal tutors, and I do the one in London, and then I bring it all together. And people come as far west as Bristol, far east as Nottingham, as I say, far down from Preston, and we come together and we have a mass choir, and we'll run that. So that's what we did, and we were blessed to have one of the UK's preeminent gospel singers in Lorraine Cato. She agreed to be part of that project. Amazing singer, We worked really
You know,
well
I
together.
witnessed her growing up in Kojic, because I'm from
Yes.
Kojic. So we, you know, yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Phenomenal singer.
Yeah. So we, you know, they said, right, we want to get the choir to sing at the Mobos. We want to produce a single, and we want it to go to #1. I said, yeah, whatever. I said, I can help you get a single. I can help you deliver, and it did deliver for the Mobos. I put out a single called Rise Up. You know, it's really done well. And that was to be the end of the project. Listen to this. You're running out of time. Listen to this. That was to be the end of the project. It delivered at Mobos. Great, wonderful, done. They sang once in December, early December, because the Mobos was in late November. A couple of weeks later, sang it in St Pancras Station. Did a few carols by the big Christmas tree, and there somebody said, "Oh, have you ever thought about going on Britain's Got Talent?"
Okay.
And yeah, long story short, another time I'll tell you, I actually said no, I ain't doing it. You know, but again, long story short, they said to me, "But Colin, this gives the opportunity to actually get your message out to 10, 11 million people. How can you say no?" And I said, "You're absolutely right." And from one project, it was meant to end in November 2017. It's still going, and it's now going independent. It's not being run by the NHS. Okay, it's running as an independent choir because the choir says we want to keep this going. Every project that the Lord has opened the door for me, they just keep going. That's the humble beginnings of of Be Positive. So that's how it started and why it started, and it continues. I could give you a whole plethora of how things are going, but that's for another time.
Jeff, I think Colin needs to come back.
I think so. I must admit, Colin, it has been an enthralling conversation. I have learned so much about what we do, about what you do, rather. And for me, I think we had a chat just before the show when we were just talking and just sort of saying, for me, one of the things that's amazing about this is exactly what you just ended on. Everywhere you've trodden your feet, if you like, you've left something there. A seed has been planted, something's growing, something wants to continue. And I think that says volumes about probably the way that we are actually called to serve, to be honest with you. So that must be absolutely really fulfilling for you as well. And just in talking about the sickle cell thing, what a fantastic name, by the way, for a choir to be called Be Positive, which I think is absolutely an excellent name, you know, given what it's about and what
tell
it's
you
doing.
what,
Sure.
Just to interject there, right? This is what I mean by, you know, I'm not afraid to walk through doors, etc. Actually, it's not true, because the name of the choir and the song that we came out that gave us a name, I said no to both of them. We had picked another name. You know, we put a competition out there, named the choir, blah blah blah, and we came up with another name. And we said, right, what's the song going to be that we're going to put out there? And a group of us got together and we came up with, and then literally 2 weeks after we did that, somebody came up with another name. And somebody came up with another song. And I said, look, we can just keep going round and round with this by committee. Somebody's always going to come up with a name. Somebody's always going to come up with a song and blah, blah, blah. I said, no. And the guy said to me, Colin, just listen to it. I said, okay, then. All right. I listened to that song and I said, it's true. Rise Up is a song. They sent me the name, Be Positive. Yeah, it's a play on blood groups and a message, etc. So even though I say no, originally the Lord said,
yes. God says yes.
I'm involved here. He comes around again, and I have to hold my hand up. I'm telling you, when we did Britain's Got Talent, like I said, when they came to Colin and says, right, Colin, we've got this great opportunity. Because I've done competitions, I've sung in competitions, I've won competitions with Town Hall Gospel Choir, won the very first BBC Songs of Praise Gospel Choir of the Year. We won that. Okay, I've been in it with other choirs. I've helped other choirs do competitions. It's what I do. I love to help, etc. I don't need to go on Britain's Got Talent. I know people who went on it. I know groups of choirs have been on it. I hear about the background things. Sorry, I know some of the complications that happen. You know, and I thought, I don't need that, folks. I don't. But then they said to me, "Yeah, Colin, but the message goes out to 10 million people."
Yeah.
It's
Colin,
less
you know,
about me now. It's not about me. It's about
it's a
others.
shame that, you know, we've run out of time, and I knew you would have so much to share. You know, Colin, look, we definitely need you back, and even your dear wife as well.
Yeah, certainly.
You know, we're gonna make it happen. We're gonna make it happen. But unfortunately, we've run out of time, and we need to end the show. It's a shame. Jeff, can you take us out, bro?
Sure. I'd just like to say, Colin, thank you very much indeed. Clive, good to see you again. All our listeners, I hope you've been inspired today, and God bless you. And Colin, we will have you and your wife back, I'm sure. God bless you for now, and goodbye, everyone. God bless you.
God bless everybody.
Blessings.
God bless. Thank you, Colin. Thank you.
Blessings,
Bless
everybody.
You.
Been great.
Yeah.